it just within the last month, was told that she passed away. And I said, how come I didn't know that? I didn't go to the funeral or anything. Well, she spoke to me and called me by name and I knew it was her. She didn't die and I didn't miss your funeral.
Well, that's a good thing. Both of them are good things.
Right, yes.
I think I haven't seen in a couple of weeks, usually called me at least once a week. I says, I knew he was sick and made it cold. Well, I see you still alive, but I saw him yesterday. See you still alive. I said, I'm looking at the obituary, I didn't see your name, so I didn't have to go to the funeral. He said, well, we got one set that one Friday. His sister died.
Oh. Oh, and then you were wishing you hadn't said that.
I knew that.
I do too.
Insert foot.
Yeah.
Good luck.
I'll know as I get older, start just keep my mouth shut.
I have
Too old to run.
I've been.
I guess I need to get older,
I've
It
been
doesn't
trying.
help a lot, Cheryl.
doesn't it?
I've been
Probably
trying
won't
to
with
really
me.
do it from now until 20.
It's time to make up for.
Yeah.
Well, if I haven't done it by now, I'm gonna just.
And to figure why you start now.
Yeah, that's right.
62 days to practice, so.
Yeah, I usually just buy what I want, so I can't worry about saying I'm bringing it.
I figured when I got married to my wife, she got the best thing she ever could have, so.
Jeez.
I'll have to remember that one.
Yeah. I never thought about that.
That's what she says, right?
Wow. I was just thinking about that the last meeting, I had no audio. I mean, I could hear you, but you must not have been able to hear me. Or was it the meeting before, maybe?
I think it was the one before.
It was the one before because I probably was marked absent because I know nobody could hear me. It was the one before the last meeting.
A lot of times I can't hear anything from these speakers.
Well, I can hear that coming to me, but I know nobody heard me. And I really had some complaints that night and I couldn't even speak up.
I know we got you on roll call, for sure.
Oh, you did?
We did, because I saw you up there.
Oh, I didn't want you to see me.
How was your driveway?
Not too bad.
Yeah, the county roads are good and.
It's all downhill, right?
Yeah.
As long as you don't shoot across. My driveway was probably worse.
As long as I stop before a horse creek, I'm doing good.
It's a bad place if you don't stop there. That's, if you're at that stop sign and you're going straight, and there's cars coming this way and that way, that's a bad one.
Yeah,
At least you got the swamp cleaned out a little bit, obviously, the seal.
Oh, it looks nice.
Guess I haven't been there, what'd you do? Oh,
Derek was talking about trees since the A. across
oh.
80.
Did Bob Simpson have that all cleaned out?
What was that?
Did Bob Simpson get all that cleaned out?
Is that where that pink flamingo or
Yeah.
what it is?
Heard that he got in a little trouble with DNR for that.
About the-
Yeah.
What, the tree
That
cutting?
doesn't bother me.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
You know, if DNR has a problem,
Bob did tell me that he probably used some language he shouldn't have when he talked to him.
yeah.
He did that with the county one. About mowing
Probably
the
done that
median.
a few times.
He had to get a permit for something, made him mad because he mows the medians for free. So he should get his permits. I think he quit mowing the median about them. Now, if we had a union, there'd probably be people complaining because he was taking their work away or something.
Usually on a Sunday morning about 7 o'clock, he was mowing.
Yeah. He must be in Florida now, isn't he?
Yeah, he's in Florida.
And he's down in that, down where Jack's are. I can't remember the name of that town, but here, don't know it. St. Peter's or
Yeah, I'm not sure. My son, they were down there over the weekend visiting. So, his family, so
Before so.
got back last night. Since he's been back.
Yeah, I think they're way down.
Discussion.
It's good, that's about as south as I get. Boy, sexy down the other night.
This is,
You really been
areas
Oh, yeah.
represented by
Got out of your comfort zone?
the ambulance service.
Yeah.
We want to
Don't like
decide
that.
what
Oh,
we're-
yeah, you did.
I don't know what he's saying.
This would be over here in the corner. What did it say? Abby. Nagel? Okay. How many Abbeys are there? Only two?
Heavy one, heavy two.
I thought, then there used to be another Abbey?
Three of them, no.
Like the Grinch, is that thing one and thing two?
Yeah, right? So, yeah, that's what I.
One thing too, huh?
Silence my phone, didn't mine ring last time? Who's on the sub?
Let's see, is Jean, I can see Jean's
Jean.
there. Anybody else?
I do not see anybody else.
Let's see if we can hear Jean.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Waiting. Another member or two, depending on which we're going to have. Well, subcommittee,
But they're, Durst? Is she on it?
Good county clerk, so I'll.
Is Durst on sub?
Good.
Who's on the sub? Durst not on sub, is it?
I think Durst,
Okay, a sub?
I think he is, and Gordon, and Glenn, and Mary,
Very sub.
myself. So that,
Pretty good.
so you may have a quorum of that. So we could at least convene that.
Ostracized the speech in that.
Oh.
That's. Look at you. That's speech person.
I don't care. Mix them all up anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
As soon as you walk away, I'll have them all mixed up.
Maybe numbers.
And it might have been the last meeting because men weren't absent and
You were here.
I was here, I'm there.
So we can correct this
But
next,
then-
next meeting.
That doesn't bother me, but I just wondered. And I wondered that.
Record, right.
Close.
Let's do it. If we work out, we got some calls, but. No, we still. We're in the road.
Oh, just start flipping stuff out.
Calls we had is. He left the one, the other road, right?
Hi, Brian.
It wasn't.
You have Gene over there?
We got straight down.
Oh, sure.
Gene, able to hear us okay?
She can.
I can.
Awesome.
Okay, we'll call the subcommittee meeting to order. Note the attendance. Palmer. Meyer. McGraw and Ronhold. Don Stanky was excused. If he's part of the subcommittee, he's excused. He's still. I'm just thinking a few notes here. All right. And then other committee members in attendance would be Dahl.
Here.
And Turk. There you are. And Nix.
Here.
Anybody else? That looks like we've got us all accounted for. You have that down.
Too short of a quorum for a JAC meeting, is that correct?
We're too short for JAC, but we are okay for subcommittee.
So the minutes in your packet were there in case we did have a JAC quorum, so we could approve the last JAC minutes, but if you're not having a quorum, I don't think, or we wouldn't be accepting those, is that correct?
We're not going to be voting on those. Proof of notification and posting. Meeting was properly noticed.
Yep, so it went emailed out to all committee members, it was posted here at the county building as well as posted at the EMS station. It was also distributed to local news and media outlets.
Okay. Item 4, approval of agenda.
I move we approve it.
No, second.
Moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Item 5, director's report, put on at the request of Mike. 2024 financial summary and review. We'll probably end up going over this again in January.
So I know a few have reached out in regards to some better idea of the financial state of the service, which I totally understand. So I wanted to make sure we set aside some time today to go over that. The first group of statements you have in your packet, as you'll see, January and February will be different than March. The finance department started distributing the monthly summary cash reports in a different style, and that's what began in March. So that's the difference between those. So I have done each month here individually, so we can go through those and talk about those if you guys would like. Beginning with January 1st of 2024, well, January 31st, I apologize, with the certain expenditures listed there. As you look into the March report, it really breaks down those expenses quite a bit better between the salaries, overtime, benefits that we pay, receipts of money that we have taken in, as well as disbursements. So really how I like to wrap this all together is people and stuff, right? It costs money for people and stuff. So left side for payroll is people, the right side for disbursements is stuff, and that middle column is what we're taking in. If you look to the far top right corner of the Excel spreadsheets, you will see what the current cash balance is versus what it should be based on what we've turned in for receipts and disbursements. I don't believe we have a discrepancy anywhere there. So that is our informal monthly audit there. Also, if you look at the bottom of each of these columns on the spreadsheet reports, you can see what the monthly disbursement total is for each of those. I encourage you to kind of look at those throughout the months to see where the averages are, where we have dips, falls, increases. If you have questions on those, please let me know. And again, with November, if you look at the payroll total for November, it does seem to be an outlier. The average payroll being right around $40,000 or so. This one was $60,000. The reason for that there is they actually processed 3 payrolls in the month of November without a base cycle laid out. So there's that's reflective of 3 payrolls instead of 2 of them. Lastly, there's this sheet that's blue and white. So this is from our soon to be former billing company EMSMC, showing month to month what we took in for the insurance carrier, and then what the following adjustments are under each month. And then that gives you the grand total for your accounts receivable for each month, and then a total for the year.
The column that is the second batch of numbers, and they're all negative, is that where they take out? What is that?
Those are the adjustments, the write-offs, the uncollectible ambulance bill.
Okay, that's what I was.
Those types of numbers, correct. Or what the contractual adjustments with the insurances. So if we bill out, let's say $1,000 and the insurance is under contract to pay $500, that would also be reflected in those.
In that insurance adjustment, contracted with whom?
So the insurance is contract with either Medicare, Medicaid, or the billing provider. So those are much the overhead type contracts.
Did they put on who they're to next time? It says adjustments, but it doesn't say who's to.
So like a breakdown of the adjustments.
Well, no, are they Medicare, Medicaid, are they insurance, what are they adjustments? It just
I didn't
says
see that report available, but I can certainly take a look and see if we can build one that breaks all of those out. I would say the biggest one where you're gonna see the most amount of adjustments is gonna be that Medicare column. You see we did $146,000, 236 and 44 cents for the total year on Medicare. So that's gonna be kind of the biggest repetitive hit there, but there's also write-offs that are associated with this. I recall with the contractual write-offs that we have with the insurance, that if a statement is X age under this category, you would accept a write-off.
Okay.
So you're saying under payments posted, the 146,236 that should be income, not, right?
Yeah, so that's payments posted. The 146,236 is how much we received for Medicare this year. No, it's not listed in the adjustments column, so look at the total number of different payments that we've received. It seems to be the same total number of lines underneath in the adjustments. And I'm wondering if that's not, or you have interest payment or payment credit card, that would fall into the second line here.
We assume.
Yeah, I said, I'm not certain about that whatsoever. That's something we could certainly do for the full 2024 at the January meeting. I'll make sure that work with them to get that all broken out.
I made a note about that.
This is Julie Fleming.
Hey, Julie, how are you?
Good. Sorry, I wasn't able to join in person. I'm in Florida, but I do have a question. Obviously, I don't have those reports in front of me, but
Yes,
could you
ma'am.
say what the accounts receivable balance is and what like the cash on hand balance is? Or
Yep,
it must be through November?
Yep, I'll start with the November 30th financial report here, and then I will tell you from the EMSMC what they've credited for the year as well. So for ending November 30th, we have a cash balance total of $8,733.57. For EMSMC, for our accounts receivable for that month is showing is $12,393.74. With the 2024 year end as of today, total accounts receivable, $252,351.23.
Thank you.
Yes.
I don't see the receipts of what the ambulance association gave.
So that was deposited in December. So the December cash report will reflect that.
Didn't we receive that in November though?
So we had to go through Executive Finance Accounting Board to fully accept it. So once that all got done, I picked it up here from the safe. I believe it was the first or second day. So.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll go on to discussions, goals and priorities
Sorry.
for the company. Oh, go ahead.
So the paper that I gave everybody that has your municipality listed on the top for 2024, this is the total billable trips within your municipality for the calendar year 2024 through today. Mind you, there could be potentially a small margin of error with these numbers. The reason being is that our providers are expected to, in reports, select which municipality that they are within. And previously in our old reporting software, you had to actually look on a map and know where you were to properly document that. When I say margin of error, I don't imagine it to be greater than about 5 to 10%, but there could be some inaccuracies in there. With our new software, when we select an address, it actually populates from Google Maps where the exact place is where you are. So if it's Rockbridge Township, it'll automatically populate that it's within Rockbridge Township. If it's in the village of Boaz, it'll populate that. It'll populate that municipality ID as well.
But the old software, you had to select the municipality.
Yeah, there's a drop-down menu in which you have to select where the call originated.
So there shouldn't be errors.
There can be, because.
If that wasn't populated, is what you're saying?
So either it was populated or not correctly. They believe they were in the city of Richland Center, where they may have actually been just a couple blocks down the road in the town of Richland. That makes a difference. Through the QA process, I'm pretty sure we've tied up most of that, but again, I don't want to say it's 100% accurate. There is a possibility that there are a few discrepancies. But as you can see on the bottom, so what these stand for is ALS emergency, ALS non-emergency, ALS 2, which we're not going to really see in the 911 room all too much, BLS emergency, BLS non-emergency, and treatment, no transport. So at the bottom of the sheet in parentheses, I wrote the total number of calls in a calendar year that we have documented in municipalities. The total number of billable calls. And Gene?
Yes,
The total number of billable calls in Village of Boaz for 2024 is 3.
yep, I know all three of them.
Okay, sounds good. 2 BLS non-emergency calls and 1 BLS emergency call.
And emergency and non-emergency, is this how they're paged or how they transport back?
This is going to be how they're paged, the nature of the call, and as it goes through that CMS billing process, what Medicare has dictated all of those different things to be. So a BLS non-emergency could be, hey, my toe hurts. We pick them, we get there, they want to go to the hospital, we transport them. That'd be a BLS non-emergency.
But that is an answer. So is this how they're paged or how they're transported back to the hospital?
This is how they're transported.
Okay.
So how we are paid, there's no way on what the service level is.
That count on assist lifts too, because I know one of them was a person that helped getting up.
Correct. So the lift assist will typically be in that BLS non-emergency or treat no transport category.
Okay,
For example, like the ALS non-emergency would be if we respond to somebody that's a diabetic with low blood sugar and we start an IV and give them dextrose. They get the sugar in, they're feeling better. Typically, they don't want to go to the hospital. We help them, get a sandwich, have a meal before we go. They sign off. But we use ALS skills in there, so it's an ALS non-emergency. With our new billing company, that's actually documented as an ALS treat no transport to kind of break those down a little bit better.
Any other questions? Do we have the goals and priorities?
I just distributed it. I could do one. No, sir. Go down one second.
Sir? So we're taking some time today to try to go through and look forward as to what we'd like to what our goals and priorities are for 2025. And look at what things have been accomplished and be checked off. And those things which are still in effort, or if they're not completed, that we want to continue. And new things that we would want to add to the list. And number one, with the wage study, what's that going to be now?
So we have our numbers back. The wage scale has been approved by executive finance and incoming board. It has our EMT basics. I think it's 1950 range an hour, with advanced EMTs in the 2153 an hour for step one. So we're pretty ecstatic to say the very least.
How much an hour for the AEMTs?
2153.
And then 1950 to start for basic.
It's, let me give you the exact one going here. Yes, so advanced EMTs, 2153. EMT basics are 1944.
Well, from where we
And like-
started. Go ahead, excuse me.
I'm sorry. And that's where they would start, correct? So if a basic was already, had been working for the county for many years, wouldn't they be in a different step?
So everybody is transitioning to step one. So with the 5% increase that created the pool of money for the county to absorb these increases, they were able to get everybody over to the new wage scale, but everybody's starting at step one. So they will have an opportunity for advancement. Keep in mind with the old wage scale, everybody is locked in at step 5. No matter how many years of service you had, how great you did in your annual performance reviews, you could not go beyond step 5. But this actually allows growth and things within the scale. So everybody begins at step 1.
Okay. Yep. And then they can go to step 7 now instead of step 5.
I
that
believe that's the case. I don't remember exactly how the resolution was voted upon, but I know that was the plan.
7. Yep. I guess I wasn't sure if people started at everyone started at step 1 or where that was, but good to see that good race for them.
Then do they move up by year? You're saying they.
Yeah, so you have, as it stands right now, you have a 6-month probationary period. After your 6 months probation, there's a small increase. I don't know if that's going to be a full step increase or a partial step increase. We're still waiting for guidance on that. So then after 2 years, you're eligible for your 2-year wage increase, which will be a step. And then how we're proceeding forward on years of service from there, I am unsure.
So the 6-month probation, regardless of how long they've been in EMT, they still have to do a probation?
No, so that's for new hire staff.
Okay, so there's something below a 1?
So step 1, you come in at that step 1 grade. So for example, when I was hired, what our step one on the old weight scale was step three technically, and that's where we started. After my 6 month, I went to step four, but now with the, new weight scale being approved, I go back to step one, but that's a place in which to grow from. How will we move forward in our policies and procedures county-wise and as an organization with our handbook? That's going to be dealt with, I think, in executive and finance and with this committee in the beginning of next year. There could be plans already for that. I'm not entirely certain. A lot of the focus has been on getting the job descriptions correct to get everybody placed correctly in the new wage scale. So I don't have a definitive answer for you, but everybody goes to step one.
To start,
Yes,
which in our case is more than what they're getting now.
correct. And that is, right now as it stands, that's for full-time and part-time staff. We're working on making sure our casual call-in staff are also receiving that wage. Because it was how the county handbook reads reflective of the Pine Valley wage scale, we're over 23 and a half hours per week. Makes part-time less than 23 and a half hours per week, makes casual call-in. Well, our casual call-in folks work 24 hours a week because that's what the shift schedule is that we have. So we're working on figuring out what employment status is versus hours worked and how to appropriate later within the wage scale. I had a meeting preliminary with Candace about this. I think it was last week. And I think I've got another one scheduled with her first week of January before she leaves, just to confirm that information.
So would these amounts be competitive with the surrounding areas?
Yes, they are. I would say we are about as close to median as we were going to get, and I am very grateful.
There appears to be some work left necessary to somehow account for the casual workers. I'm trying to figure out if one's done or if there's more to do.
So some of it is in process. There's nothing action-wise that needs to be done. It's figuring out logistics at this point in time, but I anticipate having a final answer by our meeting in January.
Okay.
After we meet again, number one should be complete.
All right, we'll put one is probably still in progress, maybe close to done. So recruitment and retention will always be.
Yes, that's always number one.
Number two, staffing levels.
So pretty excited about this. So the 20th of every month is when we post the schedule for the next month. As you guys have heard me in meetings throughout this year, we're usually going into the next month with quite a few open hours on the primary truck that we're working on filling throughout the month. We're consistently paying overtime for. I'm happy to announce I just published a schedule 3 days ago. And at the time of publishing, we have 0 open primary hours for January, which includes no extra hired overtime. So all the full-time staff are on their 48-hour week. Part-time staff have kind of transitioned to a bit of a different rotation of days that they're working. We're able to cover primary 24/7 for the month of January without any extra overtime or open slots. So with some changes we made to the schedule and things, I'm absolutely thrilled to say that.
Do we need to do anything with respect to the county board resolution related to the number of authorized full-time casual call-in paid on-call positions?
So I think with having the conversations with this committee as well as people at the county level, are we full staffed? Yeah, we are full staffed. Flip side of that coin is we're full staff for 1 ambulance. I think if our goal is to truly staff 2 ambulances, marketing ourselves well for these transfers and actually turning some revenue there, we need to consider adding some more positions. When you look at our consistent overtime costs just to fill 1 ambulance, as well as how often we're calling people in on all calls and calling people in off duty to help cover second and third calls, I think it's a very prevalent need. And one of our our first priorities in 2025 of figuring out what that's going to look like, what that's going to cost, and how we can effectively do that moving forward. We need to transfer revenue to help pay for the people, right? But we can't do the transfer revenue if we don't have people to do the transfers.
So the answer is yes.
A resounding yes.
Okay, and so C would also still be yes.
Yep, so
Okay.
furthermore, to see that is first quarter priority for department heads is to begin reviewing and going through our handbook. Making sure it's where it needs to be. That's going to be quite the undertaking.
This will be reviewed next year.
Yep.
Okay.
That was asked of all department heads moving forward in 2025.
Number 3 was one that we haven't had any discussion on. We're paying on the basis of historical calls and a sum of money that hasn't changed in ever, I think. Has it? No one here is. Gene, Gordon, do you remember if the amount per call has ever changed?
I think they went on with the new billing company
Oh,
saying what our billing should be. But I know if we get there and we get turned around, I still think we still bill $75.
Seems to me at one point it was 104.70. That's all that kind of comes to mind.
I would call it been adjusted once, but I don't remember the number.
Yeah, and maybe that original adjustment was just when we went to the 4-year average of calls rather than actually looking at the previous year's calls. I think maybe the first couple of years, we didn't do it on that rolling average. But it's been 170.
Okay. So let's see. Got 170. Or several.
How's that 170 per call?
Yeah, well, a rolling average over 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay, because I know when they bill it, it's on different, depends what the call is.
Say again, please.
I know when we went to the billing companies and they said we weren't billing correctly, that it breaks down differently for what the call all entails.
All right, we're talking the MOU amount, the fixed rate for the rolling average of calls. I don't think traditionally we've ever broken down the average of call type and assigned different prices to those. So I think the goal would still remain a fixed rate on the rolling average for the municipalities to help with your budgeting process. But I think we need to put together a subcommittee work group to really work through what operational costs are versus call costs, what our average write-off per call is, and factor in some adjustments that way if that's the way we want to proceed forward.
I guess the first question or factor is, do we do it on a per call average for over 4 years? Does anyone want to change to a different basis? I've seen these where they charge on assessed value of property within that particular area, and it can get more complicated, but it's how you divide it up.
We have a lot of discussion on that. It seemed that, after a lot of discussion, going on that rolling average, having that set amount per call was the fairest way. It was when that was established. Maybe it isn't today.
Well, I think that's the purpose of broaching the subject is I don't necessarily have a better basis to offer, but if someone wanted to discuss it and felt like it was in some way unfair or benefiting someone else better, then fine. Otherwise, let's not debate what we're not unhappy about. And I do think the amount of money probably needs to be revisited.
Right, I think that way we're determining the number of calls billing, that rolling average, I think that's pretty fair. The dollar amount, that's what we need to look at.
Okay. Is there consensus on that, Gene?
Well, I know Boaz a couple times had 0 calls, so we have nothing. So there should be a minimum then, and then based upon calls.
In other words, you had no calls for certain years?
Yes, yeah, we had 0
I looked at
calls.
the 4-year average, because there were those years when somebody had Boaz who had no calls.
And that's another
That's-
potential approach to the situation is.
Yeah.
There's a flat retainer fee to say, yes, we want EMS service. And then each municipality would either be billed monthly or quarterly, their number of calls that prior month or that prior quarter. Eliminates the average piece. It's more work on this end for sure, but you're paying for what's happening. So let's say there's suddenly an influx of 10 calls in the village of Boaz. Do they want to absorb that over a 4-year basis, or do they want to absorb that over a monthly quarter basis?
Well, there, and I'll throw in another thing. You could say there is a charge of X number of dollars per year for the right, for the availability of the service. And then when you, on the rolling average of calls over a 4-year period, you would, in addition, will be charged X number of dollars per call. That way, you would be saying to everyone, here's kind of what you're paying for to have it there. And then when you use it, you pay on a per call basis.
That might be more acceptable. Because sometimes you're questioning, why are we paying that much money? We only had 4 calls in 4 years or whatever, you know.
And
But you're staffing an ambulance 24/7 to be available and which can respond.
yeah,
And that's the basic thing is there, and then if you want to do the average or whatever.
and that would kind of get at the problem that it's glaring, very easy to see when when a municipality has no calls and they don't have to pay. And my Eagle Township, two calls 1 year, or,
Do billable calls.
you know, and are we paying enough to have this service stand by? Oh, I would guess not, but
I think it would make sense to have a basic charge just to have the service and then. go
and then a per call.
I think, go ahead.
On the other hand, I don't think that, like, the city of Richland Center should have to be paying that set fee just to have ambulance service when they have, you know, 500 calls a year. And I don't think Richland Township should have to pay a set fee to have it. I think only if you have maybe less than 25 calls per year, you would have to pay a set fee.
And
I can't see everybody having to pay that set fee, because obviously the city of Richland Center is gonna have a lot of calls. Richland Township's gonna have a lot of calls. Dayton's probably gonna have a lot. Why should they pay an extra fee?
I think
Already
what we
paying-
look at is what it costs every 12 months to run the thing versus what we bring in. We see 200, so the budget this year is 1.25 million for 2020. And in ambulance billing, we brought in $252,000 of revenue. Now, there are other revenues that came in. There's municipality payments, there's donations, there's receipts for other things, but there's a gap there, right? So we need to decide, how is that gap made up? Is it made up? Who's responsible for that gap?
All right. I think we're getting to the point right now, which is what we should be discussing. I've heard rumors around town that as of January 1st, the county is going to be running the Richland County ambulance service. And not this group of bodies that needed ambulance service and has run it the last 10 years. How much is the county going to be throwing a bunch of money into this thing now? They seem to have taken over a lot of the duties that this committee, this group of bodies had for the last 9.5 years. We still got to get that role. The county's got a role in this. What's their financial role before we determine us?
So.
What's the county?
Yep, so number one to your question, answer the end of it first is, that's my point of figuring out who's responsible. Who's paying what? Number two, this is the first time hearing that the county is trying to take over January 1st. I would be beyond surprised if that occurred January 1st. That has not been anything that's been told to me. It's not information that's been shared with me. And I would imagine, especially in this transition of county administrator, that would be the last thing on the priority list of things to do right now. We would not be having the meeting we're having today if I believe that to be any bit true. This is the first time we meet with. So,
Was it a reliable source, like Facebook?
No, it wasn't on Facebook.
It was on Facebook,
yes.
but it's been heard other places.
And that's,
Yeah,
and that's
well-
the other thing is you brought up the rumor has been strong, has been very strong. And that's why I do my best every month, and I understand, through the rumor mill, through Facebook, there's some committees not happy with how the meeting was structured last month. I'm sorry, I was trying to, develop a.
Yeah, don't get off on that.
Just give me just a second to do a 2024 review, but if that's not the structure that's liked, I can't fix it if I don't know about it. And hearing about it through the rumor mill sucks because I want to hear about it from those that it matters most to. I do my best to sit before you every month and be honest, open, and accountable to everything. If there's things that I missed or things I'm incorrect on, I'll own that too. But you're right, the rumor mill has been extravagant, to say the very least. And usually there's a shred of truth involved. But to say that the county's taking over January 1st is far removed from anything that I know to be true.
You just mentioned a minute ago, though, in January, we have to know what, these rules still aren't really set.
Which I'm grateful we're not looking at renewing MOUs January of this year, that we're gonna have MOUs through the end of the year next year with the month that we're currently on. I think it has been very clear it needs to be a priority to figure out the rule. We try to, again, set aside some meeting time for that. If we need more, we'll do it, because when there's this discrepancy in the middle, then we're being retroactive in everything that we do, right? Unless we attack that and accomplish that, figure that out, it's overshadowing a lot of other important stuff we need to get together and spending time on. It needs to be figured out. That is important to me.
I'm just concerned because for the last 9 years, we started out in January with a couple $100,000 in our account. It looks like we're going to start out January next year with $8,000 in our account. I don't know how much money. We got a new billing service and collection agency. They're going to dump $200,000 on that we didn't get from our past two collection agencies, so that we're starting out the year in good shape. To me, it seems like we're going to be starting out the year in the hole, and I don't like it, and I don't know where all our money went. The county's taking a more active role. Then county, you better start telling us, are you going to be putting some money in? We're talking about, do we have to increase our contribution to it? Well, I don't feel like us increasing anything if we have lost some of the power we have.
Well, don't make it harder than it is. If the township pay it, it's out of township money, so that's taxes. And if the county's paying for it, that's out of taxes, somehow. So it's the taxpayers that are paying for it, one way or the other.
I mean, which one is going?
You know how much the difference is with the rate?
So that number is then, so the county set aside a 5% pot. And that 5% pot of money that they went across every position within the county and budgeted a 5% increase for everybody. Not everybody's getting 5% increases.
I want to know
So-
how much is it gonna cost out of the ambulance budget to cover the raises for the EMS?
So the county, that lump sum of money is covering the payroll differences for all departments in the county.
So you're saying the county is going to be putting money into salaries for the ambulance, is what you're
There's a
saying?
difference of what we were to where we are now. That 5% pot of money is what is making up that gap. And Julie, are you still on?
Yes,
Is that your understanding as well?
yes, the 5% they did was just to get a pool of money. And then they did the wage study to determine which positions need to be increased. And obviously the ambulance was increased quite a bit, the ambulance wages. And so that pot of money included everything that the wage study suggested we needed to change. We weren't sure we were going to be able to do that, but that pot of money was enough that we could do that for all positions, plus the 5% cost of living raise. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
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 Thank you, Julie.
You're welcome.
So it'd be helpful if what I'm hearing is to have some numbers to look at as far as what that difference might be between need or what we have and what we need.
What's the difference? Who's paying?
And how that gap gets closed. You know, obviously, one way to do it, or a combination of raise the per call fee, set up some kind of standby fee that participating municipalities pay for, or the county fills it in one way or the other, which could be used existing tax revenue or collect additional tax by way of a charge for ambulance service, an assessment for that expense. Those are the three that I see. And the other one would be, of course, do less and charge less. Or have fewer bills.
I mean, that's kind of been my concern. Talking about rate, wage increases and everything, and I wonder, is that all going to get dumped on us, or is the county?
As we were
gonna be
going through,
helped?
as we were going through this year, there was a number of times I made inquiry of Mike and of Candace as to, okay, we don't have the money for this. And now I understand, I understood that it was going to be taken care of, and now I understand the particulars of, as explained by Mike.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've talked about transparency. We didn't have much regarding this until maybe right this minute. So,
And a lot of it was knowing what the plan was, but having no official action on it and not being able to really speak on it. A lot of this information I have gotten myself in the last 30 to 45 days on the implementation of this whole thing. We didn't know that we were going to be able to absorb these increases. That, yeah, the county might approve these wages, but you can't pay for them. How are we going to pay for them, right? And not considering potentially not even being on the new wage scale because of a lack of affordability. The answers to that, again, have only come up since this has gone to executive finance and county board. And I think also to that point, looking at number 4, I don't think number 4 is possible with really hashing out number 3 as well as the roles and responsibilities of the JAC. I would imagine there's quite a few municipalities that we serve that would want those two things figured out quite dang well before we sign another MOU, and that's understandable. The other thing I think I've made clear when I started, and I'm not sure if I've reiterated this, but I'll take the opportunity to do it now, is I don't want surprise costs for the municipalities that we serve. I don't want sudden massive increases. I don't want to lay a bill on your clerk's desk for some large amount for a new piece of equipment. That's not the goal. You guys budget down to the last penny, and that's what you got. We need to make sure that what this is costing and what we're charging municipalities is affordable, absorbable, but yet allows us to be sustainable.
Do we have a budget for 2025?
Yes, so that was originally presented, I think, in August.
What?
We can get a final one out to everybody, for January if you'd like.
Yes, because all we saw was on screen that we couldn't see.
Oh, okay, sounds good. Give me just one moment, if you don't mind. I'm gonna go talk to Tammy Newberry, see if we can touch.
No.
Can you just make a note and we'll send it out?
Okay, maybe that's it.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
And so many things that we're talking about here, I might have been out of the loop, but did the committee or did the committee members, who was involved in any of this? Like the 5% topics put in by the county. Did anybody know about this, or why didn't we? Or
It's been in the works. When I would ask a question as to how this wage study's done, how's this going to be paid for? It was, there's going to be a way to take care of it. And so it was going forward kind of on a matter of faith. And I think you expressed it better, Mike and Julie, in terms of it wasn't until the time that you were voting on it at the county board level that everyone kind of understood how it all fit together. Is that a misstatement of what went on?
No, so when I started, I was told that we were in the midst of a wage study for wage increases. Because we kind of made, I think, 2 attempts to address wages throughout this year, knowing that we had kind of quite a disparaging difference between what we were paying and what regional averages were. And was reiterated again in the midst of the wage study. We'll figure out a way to pay for it, ride it out. We didn't get the preliminary wage information until just a few weeks ago. And that's when it really kind of came out of how the county set aside funds to accomplish this. We didn't know where we were going to be on the wage scale until a couple of weeks ago. We didn't know that county's numbers that got to a couple of weeks ago. A lot of it has just been, this is the information we have, and this is what you get.
I'd like to give Julie. Julie, do you have any comments you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. I just want to make clear that everybody understands the 5% does not mean it's 5% across the board for all employees. That was just to create a pool of money because we knew we were waiting for the results from that wage study. So when the wage study came, then we knew there would be some positions that needed more money. Some maybe they were where they should be, some maybe just a small increase. That just gave us a pool of money to work with, just so they had an amount to work with. We weren't sure until we got the wage study back on if we were going to be able to increase all of the positions we wanted to be able to do, or if we could do it for everyone that needed to be. It just depended on how that all came through. Once that wage study came through and we had all of our budget completed for all of the departments, then that's when we could determine that, yes, we had all of the money we needed to be able to do all of the wage increases that were recommended to us.
All right. Any questions about what Julie said? And Cheryl, you had
We just voted on that at our last meeting.
Yeah, so
That's what
just
the resolution was.
all that's being said is the money that the county's covering is for 2025. So I think you do need a subcommittee to discuss how at 2026 and on, those are gonna be covered.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
gonna have to understand that.
right, that starts January 1st. Those pay
Right.
increases do, yes.
And then I think looking ahead to 2026, is there built into this or some understanding as to how the increase that was paid in 2025 is going to continue in 2026?
Yes, because we have that wage scale now. That was the point of doing that, is to see where we needed to be. And the goal is to stay up on each of those wage increases. Because as Mike talked about, there's different steps. And so depending on how long somebody has worked there, that kind of thing, then they go to the next step. So it's in the understanding that we will keep up with that now that we were able to get to that point of getting everyone where their wages need to be. The goal is to stay with that.
Okay, then may I ask just a follow-up question? The money that was used to create the pool that paid the additional money that I understand to be 5%, that money is reoccurring in the sense that it will be available in 2026 to help pay those expenses, those wages.
That's the 5% that we did for across the board to make that pool of money, was to get everybody up to where they needed to be now. Next year, that pool of money might not be as large because everyone is already currently there. And then we just need to try to figure out for increases from that point on.
Okay.
So next year, that pool of money would be different.
All right, but we're not looking at having spent one-time money to bring everybody up that now is gone.
My understanding that we plan on sticking with that and then making sure that we can continue to pay people at those rates. That was the point of doing this wage scale and having the 7 steps so that people can increase as they're able to.
Saying we only need to budget 15 per hour.
Well,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
I mean, that's,
yeah.
Was there a question there?
Moving the wage study, we were budgeted at the previous wage scale. And I think that to budget anything less than that would be, I mean, by all means, yeah, we could budget $0, say, yep, county, you're responsible. The county can say, nope.
but what I'm saying is, and I think Brian gets us, you're still gonna have to do a study, look at your expenses in 2026. Or is the county going to continue to cover that increase forever and ever and ever? Infinity and beyond.
The county has made a commitment to pay
For next year.
for 2025.
Yes.
And it sounds like the money was not one-time deal. It wasn't like we've got this one pot of money that we'll never see again, and it's gone once we spend it in 2025. I gather it is reoccurring money that they took from either the taxes or the state aid that they got in addition to the revenue that the service generates.
So should we be adding a goal for next year to talk about wage sustainability 2026 and beyond?
Let's try that.
Otherwise,
Does that make sense to you, Julie?
Yeah, because that, like I said, that pool of money was just to get everybody jumped up to where they needed to be. Next year, that we wouldn't need that amount of money, obviously, because we've already got people to where they needed to be. It would just to be able to increase each position. So it'd be a much
Yes,
smaller pool
no.
of money, and it would have to be put into the budget, obviously, but that's the intention, is to keep everybody where they need to be now.
Yeah, the pool of money solves the problem of getting people up in 2025. And all I want to know is that the source of the money for the pool that we used to bring everyone up in 2025 wasn't something we found laying along the road, and we're not going to have it next year.
That's correct.
Okay,
Obviously, one thing that really helped was is when they changed the shared revenue amount, and that has now been changed so that it's linked to the sales tax. So now what we get each year will be linked to that. So as the sales tax increases, the amount of shared revenue we get increases. So that really helped a lot when they increased it from what we were getting to what we now get. That allowed us to do many things, including this.
yeah, and I think all the townships enjoyed quite a bump as well.
Yeah.
All right,
That's right, because the village actually had, that's what I'm saying about that base amount. Like the village doesn't get that many calls out here, and sometimes it's zero. So that's why I was getting about the base amount to be charged if we don't hit a certain number of calls.
yeah, I think that we've highlighted some issues to discuss. And one is the per call, one is whether there's like a base or standby charge. And the other is the actual amount of either of those. And Gordon pointing out from his perspective that certain municipalities shouldn't be charged a standby charge or a base amount because they have so many calls. I mean, we could talk about those things. And then Mike's got some homework as far as looking at the disparity. I think we've got a greater understanding now of where the money came to pay the increase this year, and some understanding that it's probably available for next year. All right, where are we? Let's see. So, and then Mike points out 3 and 4 are sort of tied together. We can move on then. Number 5, well, we did it. I'm not sure that was a good deal.
We're up and running with the thing now, so it's now been continuing in service longer than it has been since we acquired it, so we're pretty grateful for that. With the replacement parts that we have in it, that is our when we have 3 ambulance system service, which we've now had for about a week, that is our primary transfer rig, because it's got new tires, new front end, almost completely replaced motor. For sending an ambulance out to La Crosse from Madison, I feel really comfortable with that one, making those longer distances. So,
is there going to be any need to acquire an ambulance in 2025, one way or the other?
I think it needs to be a serious consideration. Right now, again, our newest ambulance is 2012, and a lot of the parts on that one is the first generation diesel van chassis with the emissions requirement for the diesel particulate filter and the diesel exhaust fluid and all of that. And we're starting to notice some components with that system that are, for example, 2 months ago, it went into limp mode. We couldn't go 15 miles an hour with it because the coil heater on the diesel exhaust fluid tank went bad. So that was a very expensive repair, and the thing will just throw itself into limp mode, and you can't drive it over 15 miles an hour because of issues within that system.
Can we agree on number 5, explore options for acquiring an ambulance in 25, 26?
Or at least putting money away to acquire.
Absolutely.
Or lease. Because it's the lead time now is at least a year.
And what I'll do for 2025, that'll be first or second meeting, is I'll put together a presentation about each ambulance, the repair costs that we've incurred with it, no problems with it, all of that stuff. So we just have some data to base any decision making upon.
And I highlight the point I was trying to make was you could order an ambulance now and you won't get it for 2 years. So probably going to need one in 2027.
For some manufacturers, lead time is about 3 years. There's one manufacturer that's right around 14 months, but that's the shortest lead time that I've heard of so far.
Okay, so 5 is as that. I mean, I think 6A, B, and C are all kind of applicable to large ticket items. That's one thing that bothered me in the last couple of years is, okay, fine, you can set aside enough money to buy the $35,000 lift, whatever, or the heart monitor, or whatever that expensive item is, times however many you need. And the asset lasts for 10 years. But then why are you paying it in 3, or why are you paying it in 1 if it lasts?
Right, and we briefly talked about that at the last meeting, is going over what our high value assets are and the anticipated service life of those items and replacement frequency. And potentially offsetting those, so it's not 3 stretchers at a time or 3 heart monitors at a time. You know, replacing one every so many years is probably easier to do than trying to do 3 or 4 at the same time.
So I'll put it, I just review high value assets and procedures for replacement. Right, time frame. And some kind of schedule. So you're not dumping all this into 1 year.
Do we still have 2 set aside funds? Do we have a Fund 16 still?
So that's the ambulance replacement fund?
I believe that's.
Yep, so that fund does exist, and that was pretty well, I don't know the exact balance in there now, but majority of that fund is utilized to acquire 34 this year. And then we also have Fund 47, which is our training and equipment fund. That is the fund where the donation from the ambulance association is being deposited. That's also where our grant funds are deposited. Right now, I know before the ambulance association donation, there was $4,026 in the training and equipment fund.
That was what, Fund 47?
Yes. I was hoping to have a Fund 47 report by today, but with holidays and stuff, not quite at the end of the month, we don't have it. But I will present that the next meeting. That will have all of our donation stuff from our association on it as well.
But the association donation should have went to Fund 51.
So that donation was not an operational expense donation. We decided it was going to be used for PPE. Therefore, we put it to the account that specifically has a personal protective equipment line in it. And that account is audited separately because it's grants and donations.
The minutes show it was supposed to go to Fund 51.
Correct.
The board traced it.
There was an amendment in the resolution for to go to that fund because we don't have donations and grants go to that fund specifically, and because it's earmarked for personal protective equipment and equipment, I wanted an account in which it can't be spent on vehicles and other things. That's the fund for equipment, and that's where it went.
Seven A, B, C. You want to continue that on as a goal and priority?
I think that's a consistent moving target. I think that's something we need to continue to be intentional about for days and months and years moving forward. But I would say 7C is really accomplishable with what we talked about on goal number 2, having some additional staffing to make sure that we can accommodate that. We had 2 mass casualty trainings scheduled for 2025, both of which include Richland Hospital. So that covers 7B for next year. And then 7A, I think that's more of your coordination there than mine.
The discontinued practice of going.
I was on 7, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one.
7A, I mean, JC.
Yeah. You want to keep 7 on there? I'm asking these guys.
I think you should. I think it always should count.
Okay. Eight,
So 8A, we've accomplished our half of that. The other half is up to the fire district. So if you guys municipalities either share a seat on the fire district, or know somebody on the fire district, this is up to them to decide to stop billing us. We've seen kind of a bit of an increase because we've used that quite a bit more in the last 2 months, for larger patients, special situations, things of that nature. It's $200 a lot. It does add up. And I think between what we respond with fire and what they respond with for us, there's the fact we're billing each other is kind of silly and just about a wash. At some point, is one going to be receiving more service than the other one? Yeah, but a couple months later, it's probably going to be flip-flopped again. So that's,
so I just keep it on there to see if they change, or what do you want to do?
I think that needs to remain a goal for 2025. And I hope to see some movement and some action on that, on their end. Because if there is no movement or interest on the district end of discontinuing billing, then we really need to reconsider how we're billing them.
Because you're saying you don't bill them for when you get called to a fire call, just a standby?
Correct. We paused that in August in an effort because that was their serving initiative as well. But we've kept track of all those incidents and things. There's more of a show of good faith in the district of, you know, we're on board with this, let's move this forward. We're just waiting on the district to do action on it now.
I guess one thing you could do is just, you know, show them how this has gone so far when you stop. And are you going to take this up?
Yes,
Find out.
yes.
I've been able to talk to our rep. The training is something that should stay in there.
Yep, so we've already done 3 or 4 trainings with them in the last 3 or 4 months of this year. And I don't think that's anything that's going to stop anytime soon, so we're gonna keep pursuing that.
Okay. 9 is an ongoing effort.
Yep, so working and establishing a Richland County, EMS chief and captains group association, whatever you want to call that, is what we'll end up calling that. But that way, decision makers between all these EMS agencies to provide service within the county are getting together on a regular basis. We're talking about things that are going well, talking about our struggles, and focusing on sustainability.
10,
Yep, so that is, we've got about 9, say about 75% of a flex plan put together. Hoping to present that to this committee first quarter of next year to talk about the feasibility and sustainability of that. Right now, the plan that we're going to present is a flex plan, and the reason being is we have 3 paramedics that work for the service currently, myself included in that 3. And it's not realistic to guarantee 24/7 paramedic coverage with.
yeah. Maybe we just combine 10 and 11. Put an and.
Yes.
Upgrade service.
Yes, I would agree with that.
I just work Monday, Friday.
Does anybody have any objections to that?
Yeah, I do.
All right, other suggestions for things to be added?
No, that was a different one.
In there, maybe discuss that with your towns. And we'll try to take this up at our next JAC meeting, which would be,
I still think we need some clarification. Just what our role is. At one point, I know it said we were given supervision of the ambulance service. Another place it said this committee was given oversight of the ambulance service. Do we have supervision or oversight? What do those words mean? Who makes a decision on when a dollar is spent from this committee, you know.
Well, it's always been the county board.
It had the final say.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it had a final say. We kind of made a decision and
We made a
okayed
recommendation.
it. Now they're kind of making it and just telling us.
And maybe you need to have a goal and priority that the entire committee votes on that says, we want all power with respect to this, or we're happy with the way it is, or whatever you think it needs to be. And then we can take it to them and they can tell you yes or no, or us, yes or no.
Well, that's kind of what I thought that this committee was going to be doing.
Well, that's what I'm suggesting we should do. Is anything else you want on the goals and priorities?
No,
Let's
I
get
mean,
it on there.
Wanted things on like, agendas, like subcommittee and stuff.
Well, this is a goal and priority session. It's perfectly acceptable to put that in there so that when we show them, this is what we think.
Well,
And it's on there.
I truly believe it needs to be high on the goals and priorities. Believe it or not, it's as frustrating as it probably is for you. I feel the frustration as well, because it really feels like I get pulled in different directions on a regular basis. I want to do right. I want to make sure I am doing things correctly. But there is this disparagement between who's responsible for what I'm responsible for, what I'm not responsible for, what this committee is responsible for, what the new administrative form of government is. So I'm trying to balance both sides of it as well. And I don't think there should be sides to this, right? This needs to be a unified approach to providing high quality ambulance service to people of Richland County. All it does is cloud things, make it more difficult, make things take longer to accomplish. So I am the champion of getting this thing figured out. And
well, I'd like to get a priority on here that we get that settled.
all of that.
So when we add that to the list of.
What super,
Resolve.
if we have supervision, what does supervision mean? If we have oversight, what does oversight
So
mean?
what does step one of this look like? Do you guys think? Do we take this, get this on a county board agenda item? Do we call a special meeting? How do we approach this?
Well, how was it done before? Because before we'd have our meeting, we'd discuss it, and then we'd send our recommendation on from here. And that worked, didn't it?
Yeah, that's what I envisioned this to be.
Yes, yeah.
Right. Do we need to request them to be a standing committee instead of a subcommittee?
And
You
I
mean
think,
as the JAC being a standing committee on the county board?
Well, Dave basically told us we're a subcommittee and we have very little say.
Maybe we need to speak up there and say we want to be more a part of it, that we aren't just a sub.
I mean, that's kind of what I got out of it. We're not a standing committee.
and that's my question for step one. Is it to approach the committee status? Is it to approach a discussion?
I think it's needs
It
to be
needs
put on.
discussion somewhere.
Well, I think that because the ambulance is going to have a say somewhat in the county operation and the county's gonna have a say, I think we have to have equal opportunity on both sides.
Right.
You know, I think that the ambulance, if it's gonna be directed to go on the way it is, we have to have understanding from the county board that this is what we're going to do. Maybe I'm speaking out of turn, I don't know, but I think that we've had that in the past years, from what I've been on board, that the JAC had a say and the county was kind of out of it. Now it seems like the roles have reversed.
And it seemed to work well before, I thought.
Yeah.
Well,
What do we have to do to be, come on, county board committee? On that, the committee on the county board.
So that would be I believe, a proposal to executive finance committee, which then would go for a recommendation to the committee on committees, which then goes back to executive finance for approval and then to the county board for recommendation of.
Does executive finance approve committee on committees, or does that go right to county board?
So I think committee on committees is a derivative of executive finance, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know, they might specifically call a committee on committees meeting for the specific item.
Yeah,
I'm not
before the last county board, I think executive finance met at like 6, committee on committees met at 6:45. You know what, I think they did do recommendations to committee on committees. They changed it, committee on committees changed some, but then it went right to county board.
From committee on committees?
Yes.
Okay, and that might be it too.
Would it be of any use to have someone come in and explain to us what the added involvement is for a standing committee? So that we understand that either gives something of value or it doesn't.
That's gonna be beneficial.
Yeah, what does that mean when you get to these? Does that mean that the board, ultimately the board's gonna have the final say? So it hasn't changed that. Julie, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, definitely, obviously, the county board has the final say, but a subcommittee is treated differently than a standing committee. The subcommittees would then make a recommendation to the standing committee, and the standing committee then, of course, would send any resolution or anything like that to the county board. So, I mean, if it's something that you want to be done, it's, to me, I guess maybe reach out to executive and finance and to just see if they would put something on their agenda to discuss it changing. That might be the place to start. That's just my opinion, but I guess the administrator could give you that information for sure, where the best place to start would be wanting to change that.
Yes, if we want to proceed forward, what I can do is put together an agenda cover sheet, which is requesting an agenda item to be placed on an agenda, and I can submit one forward to Derek Kalis, the county clerk, and ask him for the appropriate placement of that item, whether it be executive finance.
I think that,
what have you.
I don't know. I'm sure you know. But I think that JAC, the 10 townships, both and the villages and the city, that group alone, we have to get together first of all, because we are all required to provide ambulance service for our people, the people we represent. We have to get together and decide how we are going to do it. Back in 2014 and 15, we decided how we were going to do it, and it worked pretty well 9.5 years. I think now's the time we got to look at it again and determine how we want to do it. And then at that point, if we say, well, we want to control the ambulance service, no, certainly in your final approval comes. If we're spending over 10,000, you have to approve it, all that stuff that we had before. But we have to decide how much oversight do we want to have? Are we just going to rubber stamp what the county tells us? Or are they going to rubber stamp what we tell them? Or are we going to all work together and, decide things together? But it's a mess right now.
Well, it's a mess right now. I don't know that
I mean,
that's
they're
necessarily.
providing ambulance service, which is great. We're not missing calls. The ambulance service itself is still functioning. We got, EMTs, everything there. But supervision of it, it's not working smoothly right.
No, and, we could have a discussion as to why that is, but the decision about these goals and priorities and whether it includes resolve the issue of the responsibilities of the JAC and going to the committee and the various procedure that's been discussed about how to perhaps get standing committee, that's something that the JAC needs to vote on when they approve this. And then we would say, okay, what do we need to do to implement that? What do we need to do to address that?
Well, I think it's a priority. We gotta have a priority that we get this mess straightened out in 2025.
Yeah, well,
How
there's
do we want to word that?
Happy to put it to the top of the list.
resolve the issue of what the goals and responsibilities of the JAC and its status, that's not very good. Standing committee status is my note so far. Now, obviously, we're gonna work this over so that it reads
Right.
like something other than a miscellaneous jotting.
I mean, that's gotta be a real high priority.
Yeah, I don't, one thing that would move this along better, never.
Well, I think it's very important for the JAC to be, because of, we're representing every township that's paying for the ambulance. I have heard comments from other townships that how it's good to know what's going on with the ambulance or what isn't going on. They are, because before they said they just put in the money and that's all they knew about it. And we had an ambulance and that was it. So I have heard good comments about having a committee or someone representing every township. So I think we should try to make that work as good as we could.
Yeah,
I think you're-
one of the things that would make this go smoother is to demonstrate to the county that as a committee, we can act responsibly and work through proper channels, not govern over Facebook or whatever the rants and chants thing is, and act like we, are adults
Right. And work together.
and work together. And whether the situation with the board and how they perceive we've behaved as a committee will color what they're willing to do or what they won't do. And we'll find out whether we've
But at least we should try.
torn the bridge out.
I think some of the things, I don't even know how to put anything on Facebook, so I've never.
Never accused you of doing it.
read things. My wife knows how to put stuff on there. I don't. I can read. But some of the things that have been said on there
But I think
were
we have to
said
consider
because they
the
couldn't be said here, in a committee meeting, because things couldn't get on an agenda meeting.
And some of the
People
things
wanted
that are
to
said. are just
Or if
the-
something was brought up, they said, you can't say that, that's not on the agenda. I mean, that's why it was said probably on the ramps and chats, or on the,
I just think we should not let that sway our thinking one way or the other, because most of what I have heard from, I don't do it, but what I've heard, is this true? Is that true? It's not true, what I've been asked. And so I think we should just ignore Facebook and go
well, I
on.
know a lot
like
of
we
things
do.
that were said on Facebook weren't.
Right,
There
what I was asked about was not true at all.
Do we know why some of the townships are not coming to meetings? I mean, it seems to be.
I think because of the turmoil that seems to be going on now. I think because we never had that before.
Well, we did. We had had meetings where we tried to have a meeting and we didn't have a forum.
Right,
So it's not a particular new thing.
right. Yeah, that's not new.
That's not new.
No.
Well, I think Gordon touched on it a little bit ago when we were having a meeting several months back and something was brought up and the county attorney spoke up and says, we can't discuss that because it's quote out of line,
Not on the
Wasn't
agenda.
on the agenda.
wasn't on the agenda. And I don't think it was facetious to be, but things wanted to be discussed, but they got stymied because they couldn't be discussed.
And I
It-
remember that, yeah.
Well, here
Comment.
we are.
If you,
Yep.
it violates open records law if you discuss things that are not on the agenda. So that's why he would have stated that.
Yeah. Well,
But you have to be able to get things on an agenda also.
Well, and that's why we got the 2024 survey on the agenda today. Because we reached out, specifically wanted it. And, try to get it after. I understand there's been times where other things weren't put on there when they were requested. I'm not gonna act as if that hasn't happened.
And I'd like to, sorry to interrupt, I'd like to mention one thing, Mike, in your defense. I think when you came in and you were hired, you were not made aware of what the function of this committee was, what it had been for the previous 9.5 years. I mean,
I think that's a fair statement.
and you were.
A lot of this has been navigating, hearing one thing from the Joint Ambulance Committee, hearing another thing there, hearing another thing there, and trying to navigate, what's correct. Yes, are there resolutions that are out there for certain ways to go about things? 100%. But now there's discussion, okay, is that resolution null and void or still standing based on this new adoption of this way of things? I'm not a legal expert, I've never pretended to be. I'm trying to navigate this as well as I possibly can. I want to be affirmative in the sense that I want to figure out which will JAC thing. I'm not working against you guys by any means. I'm not saying that accusation's out there, but I want to make it very clear. I'm happy to work with you guys on figuring out what the role of the JAC is. Because without that, we are continually kind of stuck in the cycle of like figuring out who's responsible for what, and we're not getting stuff done. Okay. And I very recently, a few days ago, we encountered a situation that if paramedic level care was available to the patient, things would have turned out a lot different, and it wasn't. And it just reiterated to me that there are important things that we try to get accomplished, and it's difficult when you just have this huge political bubble kind of sitting in the middle between working together, not working together, who works with who. And at the end of the day, I'm here to serve the community and make sure that you provide high quality of service. That's what I want. And if it takes getting this thing figured out, hashing out for a month or 2 or 3 months, whatever, let's do it. Let's get it accomplished.
And then we could work together, everybody work
I
together.
personally, because of my position, I do not have an opinion on how things move forward. What my opinion is that we have a functional form of committee or governmental structure, which I report to, that allows us to accomplish our goals and priorities. What that ends up looking like is what that looks like. And if getting to that point is helping, push this through the proper channels, if the standing committee is the goal, then hey, we'll move that forward. Because I'm not having the week that doesn't help, right? We need to have a week. And throughout all of the government.
And we need to get this decided soon, Brian, because pretty soon they're going to be hiring another county administrator who might come in with another idea of how the county's supposed to be run.
As soon as
That we went from no county administrator to 3 county administrators. And first couple, went along with what we were doing. Then we got the present county administrator, and she had a totally different idea. And that's when things happen. And now we're going to be looking at another county administrator. We better determine how this committee functions and in conjunction with the county before we get another county administrator.
and my intent is to present the 2025 goals and priorities in our January meeting.
Now, let's get something in there about getting this.
I pointed out that I made a note, it's not the final product.
As soon as we can get this finalized the next JEC meeting, I'm happy to request an agenda item with the executive finance or committee.
Well,
We start there.
Yeah, let's
Well, wait up, hold off on that.
let's just wait. I'd like to talk to Julie and get some ideas from her, and then we'll get this finalized. It won't be just to discuss the goals and priorities when that meeting is arranged. It'll be, this is what we're presenting. we'd like for you to recognize this is where we're heading. And we'd like for you to bless that. And then we have this big item that needs to be resolved.
And then I think we need another subcommittee meeting. Full committee.
Full committee.
No, after the January meeting of the full committee, we get to go over these goals and priorities, then I think it has to go back to a subcommittee when we start working out the final priority.
I would think that we would only go forward after the JAC is determined that, that number 12
Yeah,
is
No, I-
something we're doing,
well, I would.
Right?
I think they would approve, yeah, that's.
so we would, I'm not sure what the next subcommittee meeting would be, except to get it going, send it up. Send this up.
No.
Could we actually do that at our next JAC meeting?
I was hoping so.
I think so. I think that could be done then. That's what we've done before.
I think one thing we gotta remember, every township, every village, city has to provide ambulance service. The county could come up as soon as the contractor's up, they could say, we're not gonna do it anymore. And us as township members, we have to come up with something.
Because we
So
got.
we gotta work together.
Absolutely. I think.
I don't know that the city's obligated, but the town certainly are.
So I think the city is.
I think city and village.
So unless they change it.
Well, township anyhow.
Yeah, townships are.
Yeah.
And one thing too, take this with a grain of salt if you'd like to, hopefully provide some affirmation, but the county within a county board meeting, I don't remember the exact date. It was made fairly clear and agreed upon that though EMS is not a statutorily required service to provide by the county, they have deemed it an essential service and one in which they are prioritizing the sustainability and growth of. So, and I think, and Julie could probably comment to this, but I think that's shared fairly well amongst the executive finance and county board. I don't think we have many in those roles that would say anything to the contrary there. And that was a big piece of saying, hey, you know, EMS matters when it comes to these wage increases. It matters when it comes to the other things we're doing because it is in fact essential service.
When is our next JAC meeting?
I wrote it down.
January 27th, I have.
January 27th?
Is that soon enough?
So yeah, we're fourth Monday for JC meetings.
Is it?
Well, go ahead, sorry.
Is it possible to get minutes and reports emailed out, so the people who come in at the last minute, they're not reading the minutes?
You would think, yes.
I normally used to, but I didn't get any agenda again.
So I just talked to
See.
Steve, there's probably an issue with email list, so I would imagine that
Okay.
you're
Yes, then-
going to be on that list by the end of the day, if you're not already, you can figure out why that's not happening. Also, all of, starting with this meeting, all of our documents, so the packets, agendas, minutes are all being uploaded to the county website. So if you go to the county website under subcommittees, go on joint ambulance, the video from the previous meeting will be on there as well as the agenda and the packets once the minutes are approved in the following meeting.
So if we get we know that we have a meeting on the January 27th. So a week, it's got a question mark, a week before that meeting, folks could go up, or when they get notice that the agenda has been sent out, they could go on the website as you've described, and they will be able to see the documents that we're going to be looking at.
Yeah, so now when we send out the email, the meeting date and agenda, that's also going to all the media outlets that has to go to for posting. It's getting posted here at the station. And all of those documents are then being put over to a shared drive called committee documents into the joint ambulance folder to be uploaded to the website. So you will get it, it'll be available via email and via the county website.
So it'll be an attachment on email.
That's correct.
Okay, rather than having to go to the site to find it.
And there's been some administrative delays on my end, that some of the stuff is not going out on time, I apologize for that. Just when, the previous departure we had, there's handled all of these things, it just became a lot to all juggle at once, so
I would assume that
I'm doing my best now with family.
Week to week.
We need some, we just need to get the standard operating stuff so that it just does it. That'll be great.
I know there's
That sounds good.
Comment that was made somewhere else. Will we get the minutes from the previous meeting? That helps me if I can read it before I get
Yeah,
here.
that'll be in the packet, so you'll get,
In the,
yep, so you'll get a meeting packet sent to you.
Okay.
And there'll be the packet that's available.
That's
on the
correct.
website as well.
okay.
Okay, are we ready to adjourn?
Oh, one more thing that was on my mind. I think this was brought up another time. Could we somehow have a list of the employees, the EMS people?
Yeah, so after last meeting, I had Sam send out our duty crew roster, to everybody, that they received that.
I didn't.
You did not?
But I don't think that was very helpful. Can we get, I don't care what crew they're on, can we find out if they're full-time or if they're part-time, if they're paid on call or?
Yeah, so I wasn't exactly sure the specifics of what you guys wanted. I just didn't want to
That's what
send
I
out
would
like
like.
phone numbers and that type of stuff too, because that's what we have on the roster that has all the info. So we can do a kind of redacted roster. It takes out the personal contact info, but it'll show name and employment status and things.
I would like that.
Absolutely.
I could make a motion to adjourn.
I'll send them a line, it's not meeting.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Motion carried.
Question, there was a claims reimbursement form, was that for the last JAC meeting, or was that for today?
So you could put both of the meetings on there. You could put
I know
their
I didn't
space
put them on
for
last meeting.
December's meeting for both of them.
I've got a second claims form if you'd like to choose separate.
I put mine on one form for both December 3rd.
Thank you, Brian. Stuff.
Got a lot of please be off the ball.
Is that
Both agree.
Both.